one thing that struck me in that presentation there, Anthony, we're talking about this renaissance in apprenticeships. Where are you seeing the growth of recruitment of apprentices? Because it's not just the traditional sectors anymore, it's across the board, is it?
Absolutely. I mentioned accounting, IT user is a particularly popular framework. Business administration is growing, health and social care is growing, and we're doing a lot of work with public sector employers as well. But we've got huge commitment from the National Health Service in the region and from the local authorities to take on additional apprentices.
You're also seeing this rise of celebrity chefs. Suddenly, I suppose an apprenticeship is a great way for a young person to feel like they can go in on the ground floor and maybe aspire to become a great sort of restaurant owner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at some of our famous Yorkshire folk who are out there, Brian Turner started life as an apprentice. So I mean, there's a clear precedent there. But clearly, catering and particularly, chefing in particular, is one area where there is always a crying need for more talent. And apprenticeships are one way to help start to address that. Great.
And Alison, you mentioned that some of your apprentices have actually now up on at director level.
Yeah.
And is that something that you always, I suppose, hold out to your new intakes of apprentices to show them how far they can go within the business?
Yeah, I mean, we are a family business, so there's a lot of emphasis on training and apprenticeships, and there always has been. A lot of our engineers and a lot of our contracts managers and our operations directors and things like that, they actually, because they came through the apprenticeship, have a lot of affinity and a feeling, and they actually do interview the apprentices when they come in and tell them, look, I started off like you did, but if you work hard and this is what I do now and things like that. So it sort of runs as a theme throughout the business.
You just indicated that there was some funding for over 24s, 25s and above. I thought that had all been withdrawn.
16 to 18-year-olds, as many places as you want. But 25 plus, there's only so much invested each year.
Yes.
But I go to schools and colleges and actually teach business, enterprise, emotional intelligence to schools. And there seems to be a bit of a contradiction in terms of what you're saying compared to what the schools are telling the children. But when I go into schools, they seem to be so preoccupied with academia and teaching them about getting GCSEs and A-levels, whereas I honestly believe the same way as you. It's more about life skills, and it's about getting students into the sectors where we really need them, like construction. There's no construction colleges actually in schools. They're not actually teaching them what's really necessary for life after education. And also further to that, I believe all students have to stay in a school until they're 18 in the next 3 or 4 years' time. And I'm going to a conference in 2 weeks' time where there's going to be a load of head teachers, and they have not got a clue about what to do with their students. And I'm not sure how much joint up thinking there is between schools and the apprenticeship.
Great point, and I think you're right, and it's one of the things that we've been set up to help to get rid of that culture that does exist. The school leaving age that you mentioned, yes, it is going up to 18, but there is a misconception about what that means. That doesn't mean that everybody is staying at school until they're 18. It means they're staying in some sort of education or training until they're 18. So apprenticeships is one of the routes that young people can go into. We're working with schools, with people like Connections, to help them to get the right messages out there. We have the website that the National Apprenticeship Service has developed. There's a section on there for learners which tells them all about what an apprenticeship is. And one other thing I really want to mention is we're working closely now with schools, with local authorities, to try and get an apprentice in every single school in the region. Okay, and some local authorities have already committed to that. And there's nothing better than having the product in front of people in a school environment so people understand what it is. And so we've got teaching assistant apprentices, we've got sports and leisure apprentices that are starting in schools across the region. All school pupils can see what an apprentice is and understand it, so can the teachers, which will help them to better understand who is more suited to going down that route.
You mentioned earlier about the incentive effect for training support, but as far as I'm aware at the moment, cash is king. And I think it's about £2,500 that people can get access to if they take on apprentices in the next month or so. Is that still around, or is that finished?
It is still around. You're absolutely right. There is a £2,500 grant available. At the moment, it's short term for employers who are going to take on a 16 or 17-year-old before the end of March. So there's a very tight timescale on it. We had 400 places allocated to us in the region, and there's only 80 left. So there is a window of opportunity there, but you've got to take that person on before the 31st of March. You've got to find that young person before the 31st of March. So, you know, if you want to talk to us about that, please do, but you need to be geared up to act quite quickly.
Gentleman there.
What help can a company have with recruitment and also drawing up a shortlist, you know, before going into the interview process? Is there anybody to assist us?
Absolutely. I mentioned we have an apprenticeship vacancies system, and so you can advertise your vacancy on there and obviously specify, as you would in any job advert, what sort of person you're looking for, which will whittle down the candidates that you get. We have potential apprentices registered on the system. There's over 100,000 nationally registered on the system, and they will get an alert to say that your vacancy is on there if it's in a framework that they're interested in doing. They will then apply if they meet your criteria. So if you might want to specify that you want somebody with 5 GCSEs A to C or certain experience, they can apply to you, and you can then sift through those applications as you would any others. Our apprenticeship vacancies team will help you to do that if you want them to, or the training provider or college that you're working with would help you to do that as well. And then you interview the pool of people who you're most interested in, as you would for any other job. The thing about that is it's free. You're reaching a wide pool of potential applicants.
I think that's a key point probably, Anthony, because businesses probably have the will to take somebody on, but the recruitment process can be time consuming, sure, lengthy, and you know that's one thing that businesses don't have, so you can take some of that time constraint out, can you?
I mean, often it's the case as well that providers and colleges are in touch with young people anyway already. They have a pool of young people who they know about, who they might have been working with on other programmes. Some of them might have been unfortunate enough to have been made redundant, for example. And so, you know, there are people who, you know, perhaps are part way through a programme as well who could be available. And so they can help you in that way.